Today, the topic actually is the second part, cultivating wisdom as a Chan practitioner. I think I gave the first part of this talk a few weeks ago and didn't go very far, but I think it would be okay even if you didn't, if you weren't here last time. I started with trying to talk about this topic, a big topic, so cultivating wisdom. Trying to understand what Master Sheng Yen was talking about when he explained wisdom this way. The wisdom is not knowledge, it's not experience, it is an attitude of no self. So I would like to continue on this first part where he talked about wisdom not being knowledge. And last time I talked about knowledge in terms of how we usually understand knowledge, the professional knowledge we have in our life. So we've been so that's where I ended last time. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate those of you who switch on your video. Thank you. Okay. Hi, Pedro. Hi, Harry. Good seeing you. Oh, I guess you need permission to switch on your video. I just realized, so I give you a moment. Hey, Bob, good seeing you. So we talked about professional knowledge last time. When the talk's available, I welcome your feedback on what I talked about. So for many of us here, we may think about, of course, knowledge may be in different way. How about Dharma knowledge? Many of you had acquired a lot of Dharma knowledge. So of course, studying and understanding Dharma teachings is crucial for developing right view and cultivating wisdom. We need to develop correct conceptual understanding of the Buddha's teachings, such as suffering, impermanence, emptiness, non-self, karma, the paramitas, Four Noble Truths. Many of you are familiar with these concepts. Dharma concepts are useful, in fact, very important to help us make sense of our direct experience of reality, to help us understand the Buddha's teachings. I remember many years ago in one of the early retreats I attended with Shifu, this experience, this teaching I received from Shifu, Master Sheng Yen. So you may all have this experience yourself that when you're doing meditation, there are thoughts coming up. It's like coming up and then they disappear. And we kind of become confused what's going on. And we may think that something's wrong with us. And wondering or being very disturbed, like, why can't I control these thoughts? And in this retreat, I remember very distinctly Master Sheng Yen speaking to this, saying, he said, many of you have been very troubled by these thoughts arising in your mind. But actually, this is the direct experience of impermanence. Being able to see that thought shows up and then they move on. And so when this is an example of wisdom when we can apply the concept of impermanence to make sense of our experience, to understand the true nature of our experience. And as a result, we can see reality as it is and do not give rise to vexations, such as aversion to impermanence. So doing so is the cultivation of wisdom. This is the wisdom of cultivation. Some of you might have heard of this sort of progression or different steps of cultivation wisdom. And it's based on the application of conceptual thinking, which is in turn based on the correct understanding of Dharma concepts. We learn from reading and listening to the Dharma, which is followed by careful examination of our understanding. Let me take a little bit of time to explain this process of cultivating wisdom. This process, Master Sheng Yen has mentioned many times, it's based on the teachings in the sastras, that there is the step of hearing, studying the Dharma, kind of like what you're doing, listening to Dharma talks and reading Dharma books. And, but that is, that then we can, so after hearing the Dharma, we say, oh yeah, we gain some wisdom. And, but that's the wisdom from the Dharma that was realized by someone else. And then we also, but we also need to cultivate the wisdom of carefully examining the Dharma, making sure that we understand these Dharma concepts correctly. And you can say it's a experience or process of deepening our understanding of the Dharma. And there is the step of cultivating wisdom, the wisdom of cultivation. And this has to do with applying the concept in our experience. So let me use an example. So the example of the concept of impermanence. So many of you have heard this concept many times. Everything changes, it's impermanence. It's like, yes, I got it. You know, I know everything changes. Nothing is permanent. I already know, I got it. Like, tell me something more profound or something. Like, so when you have that thought, you might want to ask yourself, really? Do I really understand what the Buddha meant, what impermanence really means? Given the entrenched habit of our erroneous views, chances are one way or the other, we are imposing our erroneous views onto the concept. And the most pervasive erroneous view that we hold is that of believing that there is an inherent, independently existing essence in a phenomenon. If this phenomenon is a person like us or someone else, another person, there's an inherently existing self living in person. There's a very pervasive erroneous view. So if we not recognizing this, then we can carry this understanding of phenomenon to think about impermanence. And we end up with the idea of there's something being here, and impermanence means that it then it disappears. So then we are left with the impression that we lost something, or that we gained something, or something's lost, something is gained. And when we see different phenomenon that way, chances are we'll give rise to aversion or craving, depending on whether we like, of course, as you know, aversion. Okay, can you hear me still? Are you able to still hear me? Okay, thank you. So what happens is then we somehow believe in our set up the idea in our mind that impermanence causes suffering. And so what do we do to solve the problem? Try to control things, try to stop, try to resist impermanence. And as you can see, that is not wisdom. So what we need is to take the time to carefully examine the concept, like every Dharma concept that we learn, such as the concept of impermanence. And so, for example, I had a student who asked this question, such as, well, you know, I don't understand why we need both concepts. If we already can understand everything is impermanent, why do we need the teaching of emptiness? Aren't they pretty much the same thing? Like they are, it seems to be redundant. So this is an example of carefully examining the Dharma concept that we learn. It's not assuming that we already know, oh yeah, that sounds right, and using our existing view to understand it. It's like really asking questions to make sure we're understanding it correctly. And we would have an opportunity to gain deeper understanding of what the Buddha meant by impermanence. And with the right view that every moment is the coming together of many causes and conditions that are in turn constantly changing. This converging and dissipating flow of causes and conditions. And when we can read this correctly, then nothing is lost or gained. And that's why in the Heart Sutra, you might remember encountering the phrase, there's no arising, no perishing, not pure or impure, and nothing increase or decrease. So by studying and carefully examining our understanding of Dharma concepts, we cultivate right view. This is wisdom from listening to the Dharma, and wisdom from carefully examining the Dharma. And they constitute the foundation for the cultivation of wisdom as we apply these concepts to make sense of our experience that allows us to see the present moment reality clearly. The discernment made possible by clarity gives us the opportunity to respond with wisdom, choosing to respond in ways that do not create suffering for ourselves and others. For instance, as we experience our bodily functions deteriorating with age. Sounds familiar? Not me, not Harry, not you. We apply the concept of emptiness of body to see that this is the natural part of having a body. We see the futility of getting upset and grumpy about it. So we don't give rise to suffering. And as we experience this natural process of the deterioration of functions of the body, we can age gracefully and be easier to live with for others around us. If you ever live with anyone who's grumpy about getting old, you know what I mean. So this is the wisdom from cultivation based on correct understanding and application of Dharma concepts. To cultivate wisdom is to practice remembering to apply Dharma concepts moment after moment. And How do you remember this? Cultivate the stability and clarity of mind. That is why the meditative practice is a crucial part of our practice. I'm hearing that you're not hearing me on the chat. So can I ask, are you hearing me? You okay? Okay, so, all right. So the more we remember to practice, which has to do with our clarity and stability of mind, using our method of practice to stay in the present moment, the more we remember to practice, the more the validity of the Buddha's teachings becomes clear. When you first hear it, you just don't believe it. And the doubt that obscures our mind due to the habit of self-centered attachment will gradually dissipate. The wisdom of realization, the fourth step that Master Sheng Yen often talked about, refers to the direct understanding of the true nature of reality without the mediation of conceptual thinking. So what we've been talking about so far is to diligently remembering to apply Dharma concept in our experience. When the wisdom of realization refers to this direct understanding without the mediation of conceptual thinking. In other words, the habit of self-centered attachment is dropped. You may have heard it a number of times. In Chan, we call such realization seeing the nature. And you will also hear that it cannot be described or discussed, really because it is not mediated through conceptual thinking. Or you hear that it's beyond words. It's not because it's extraordinary or mysterious. But any attempt to think our way to it will only get one farther away from the wisdom of realization. So when Master Sheng Yen said, wisdom, it's not knowledge. He's talking about wisdom is not only about having lots of Dharma knowledge. I hope I made a little bit of a case to illustrate that. It's not just words and you got a lot of them. And after all, there are a lot of Buddhist scholars who have a lot of knowledge who do not practice. So their knowledge of Buddhist teachings remain conceptual knowledge, and they're not used to alleviate their own suffering or help others to alleviate their suffering. And so that remains knowledge, that's not wisdom. There are practitioners, so not scholars, practitioners like yourself, who love studying the Dharma, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's good. But what you want to do is to check to see if we are substituting acquiring Dharma knowledge for practicing. So when you are, I love reading Dharma books, I love listening to Dharma talk podcasts, that's like my favorite hobby. Ask yourself, what am I doing? Are we mostly reading and discussing Dharma concepts to fulfill our intellectual curiosity, but shy away from looking at ourselves honestly and realizing that it is not what we think? Are we willing to let go of our preconceived notion of the self and the world by really making use of the Dharma teachings. We may read a lot about letting go of attachment, but without actually putting it into practice, we have no idea how much attachment we actually have and how hard it is to let them go. I have come across a lot of people who are obsessed with emptiness, always want to talk about and read about it. And the question is, are we willing to truly see that every moment is the coming together of causes and conditions, emptiness itself? So check to see if we believe that reading and talking about Dharma concepts is enough. It's like, I read a lot, I know I got this is with belief that is practice. And do we resist putting them into practice, into our life? Because concepts are so neat and tidy, and our experience less so. Are we ready? Are we ready to, or too ready to tell people about impermanence when they are facing death? Right? Someone who is like getting old and dying, it's like, oh, life is impermanent, you know, just accept it. But we avoid facing our own impermanence. Other people are impermanent, but like, we avoid looking at that. Facing the reality of impermanence in our life involves examining our world, such as our family, what is most dear to us, and see how it is constantly changing and it is empty, the coming together of many causes and conditions. And it may not be how we would like to think of what it is that's our family, right? If we really apply the concept of emptiness and impermanence to what we hold most dear to our heart, we'll notice that we have a very strong tendency to hold a fixed idea of, for example, what our family is, and we prefer to hold it in our mind as our family. I have been to people's homes. They have their kids are like 30-year-old, and they still have picture of their kid when they're 5, the cute age on their refrigerator. That's my kid, and in their mind, that's or like the family picture of the kids when they were cute and not these rebellious, annoying teenagers. Examine how we are holding a particular idea, fixed idea of things that we hold dearest to ourselves. And realizing that, you know, these ideas or the family portraits with everyone, the kids being cute and everyone being together, smiling, no longer matches the present moment reality. It's not that the present moment is worse. It's just not, your kid's not 5. So do we see that? And that, you know, right now the kids are grown-ups, live very different lives. Your family is still family, it's just not what you thought, what you believe it still is. Applying the Dharma to our life means doing this, to see our life as it is. And it can be hard and uncomfortable, but illuminating, and give us insight of how we are creating suffering for ourselves and others, so that we have an opportunity to stop doing that. And that is what wisdom is about. When we apply the Dharma this way, we can understand that Dharma teachings are skillful means to point us to the reality of our existence. They're like the finger pointing to the moon, these concepts. remember that the finger is there to provide direction, guidance. The Dharma teachings are tools, not the truth itself. Without the finger, the Dharma teachings, we will have no idea how to discover the moon. So we need to reflect on whether we are focusing on the finger a little bit too much and mistaking it as the moon. Just keep staring at the finger. You just never get to look up the moon. Practice noticing when we are doing that. When we talk like we are liberated, like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which reading sutras or Dharma books a lot can make us feel that way. It's like, you think you're just this, I have all these realizations. But we are not honest about our true situation, about our suffering and vexations. Master Sheng Yen often would say, doing that is like looking at the menu at a restaurant. Wow, it's like, this is so good. But you actually have to order the food, design the food, order the food, and actually eat the food because, you know, you're hungry. So we're suffering. We need to actually practice and apply the Dharma to help us alleviate suffering, stop the habits of suffering. And when we are not honest about our true situation and believe that we are like these liberated beings, but through reading the words, it is a form of spiritual bypassing, using Dharma concepts to mask and avoid our vexations instead of facing them, so that we can begin to unlearn these unhelpful habits. So Master Sheng Yen talked about that wisdom is not knowledge. I want to talk about the next part. It's not experience. And why does he mention that? I think maybe some may be thinking that, okay, I got it. Like Chan's beyond words. It cannot be attained by thoughts or concept. If you read enough Zen books, you get that part. And so must like it's. I know it's not words. Okay, it's like a feeling. You know, it's an experience. That's an experience. That's the enlightened experience. I know. That's where the secret is. Here, Master Sheng Yen says, it's not an experience. Many meditation practitioners, oftentimes in Zen or Chan, after hearing that Chan is beyond words, so you sometimes hear the word inconceivable. In Chinese, literally means cannot be thought or talked about. And they believe that the wisdom has to do with some kind of deep meditative experience. So that's why you work hard on this meditation. And sometimes meditative practitioners of meditation may experience some meditative states when the mind settles down, a state of oneness, and feeling you may yourself have experienced that, or hear people talked about it, feeling just love. There's like every universe is with you. A lot of very connection with everyone. And based on, and from this experience, believe that is the Buddha's wisdom. And with this belief, one may think that, oh, I have this wisdom, it's mine. I have this wisdom. And perhaps consciously and unconsciously believe that it makes oneself special or superior. Because I have this experience, you don't, and go and tell others, teach with the attitude that I have seen the truth. I have this experience. Let me tell you, and how it's like, and what you need to do to have that experience too. Does it sound like the attitude of no self that Master Sheng Yen was talking about? And there's some also some people, clever people, oftentimes, who know that yes, that's oneness. That's what we should be after is emptiness. It's like keep the eyes on the ball. I'm going after emptiness. Now these folks are very interested in or obsessed with emptiness. Perhaps they have heard that wisdom is about emptiness. Right? So they are trying to experience emptiness to attain the wisdom of emptiness, the prize, the wisdom of emptiness, by letting go of thoughts. That's a project. And Nagarjuna talked about this in the Mahaprajna Paramita Sastra. That when one strives to attain the experience of emptiness, oftentimes we're talking about these very, these practitioners who meditate and the mind become very quiet, and they're there to trying to attain experience of emptiness, believing that emptiness means being able to let go of thoughts, let go of self. In the moment of the mind being very quiet, one is terrified by the fear of losing the self. And this is rooted in the erroneous view about emptiness of self. Because emptiness of self does not mean that there's a self that disappears. There was never a fixed self to eliminate to begin with. So trying to let go of self-attachment or the self is itself a self-attachment, because it's founded on the idea that the self is a fixed entity to be gotten rid of. It's a very subtle idea, subtle attachment. And it's very important that in our practice, that we practice noticing erroneous views like this arising. And some believe mistakenly that having deep meditative experience that they thought were emptiness, quote unquote, as if emptiness exists only in some special place or moment, meant that this is what wisdom is like. And what they're doing is turn wisdom into a fixed entity, which feels a certain way. It's like a certain experience, a certain state, based on that experience. Now, this experience, it's maybe a moment of clarity and compassion, but still conditioned. Holding such an experience up as wisdom is an attachment. So again, this is why in the Heart Sutra it's so important to remember towards the end of the text, there is no wisdom, no attainment with nothing to attain. But we kind of ignore it, spending enormous energy. I need to attain this wisdom, whatever, like wisdom of emptiness. As long as there is an idea that, this is it, I got it, I finally got it, there is attachment. Nagarjuna, Imaha Prajna Paramita Sastra, wrote, it is through refraining from attachment to any Dharma that one should perfect Prajna Paramita. Any Dharma. No exception whatsoever. So this includes refraining from attachment to the most profound experience in our practice. An attachment to such experience may be enlightenment experience, it's vexation and suffering, and not wisdom. So I've spent these two talks to try to help us understand a bit what Master Sheng Yen was talking about when he talked about wisdom. Again, big topic. To help us really to unlearn erroneous views. Right? Wisdom is not knowledge. There's nothing wrong with knowledge. Just don't mistake it as wisdom. It's not experience. There's nothing wrong with these experiences, but don't mistake that as wisdom. What is it? It is the attitude of no self. Well, then you're like, okay, I now know what my target is. So how do I achieve the attitude of no self? Well, by not trying to achieve it. Remember, Heart Sutra, there's no wisdom, no attainment, and nothing to attain. So practicing without the idea that there is anything to achieve or attain, just practice. Very different from how we usually go about life, right? It's like, I'm doing this to get that. Why do I meditate? So to become enlightened, to get wisdom. That is already not wisdom. So as long as you try to achieve this attitude of no self, then there is this idea of a fixed entity, I, moi, who is doing this, and the idea of an entity called wisdom, or whatever you call it, emptiness or attitude, to be attained. And one is perpetuating the dualistic thinking of I versus other, wisdom versus ignorance that characterizes the habit of self-attachment. We can think of self-attachment as a habit of myopic vision. So I like to call it the center, I am the center of the universe syndrome. Sound familiar? Like that's it's me, and then the whole world revolves around me. It's all about me. Things happen to me. Cultivating clear total awareness of every emerging present moment with Chan practice helps us unlearn this unhelpful habit. Unhelpful because it's a distorted view. That's not what is really going on. Practicing this way when we find ourselves in a situation of giving or helping, as in the cultivation of generosity, another parameter. Recognizing that what is happening is the coming together of someone who happens to need help in this moment, and someone, maybe it's us this time, who happens to have what is needed. It does not mean that I am the giver forever. Recognizing this, we are grateful for the opportunity to practice letting go of the habits of self-attachment. And when we can practice this way, we won't, giving generosity would not end up causing suffering. You may notice it has happened when you help or give, you end up suffering. That's because of erroneous view. And also, we don't mind, and we're totally okay with it when it is our turn to receive help, when it's the turn of someone else helping us, because we don't think that I have to be the one to give and help. So in this way, whatever our circumstances, there's no problem. It is a new moment and an opportunity to practice. And in this way, moment after moment, we can cultivate this attitude of no self. I hope this is useful, and keep in mind what wisdom is not and how to go about our practice in cultivating wisdom. Thank you. Angela, do we have time? This is the time for some question, if there is question.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, we have about 15 minutes. If there's any questions, please, you can raise your hand, or you can post the question on the chat, and we will call your name. Bob, and then Harry.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. It's a little muffled. I can't hear very clearly.
I just turned off the external speaker. Is this better?
Way better, thank you. Okay,
now I can't hear you though, but I'll put that back on after I ask. Okay, I'm a little confused about the experience aspect. Like, I maybe I'm misunderstand, or maybe you can explain further. Like, if I were to explain Watteau practice to somebody, I would say that it's not, you don't arrive at, oh, now I understand. It's like an experience. It's like you ask, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it's designed to create an experience. So that experience, to me, thinking of it that way, is like a direct experience of reality, or of seeing yourself nature, or becoming yourself, or being more aware of reality. That it's an experience of it. It's not like an intellectual, oh, it's this, it's that. You directly experience it. So in that sense, I'm confused about why wisdom isn't experience, or like it seems to diminish experience. From what you're saying, it leaves me feeling like it diminishes experience. Is it that it's not an experience, like one thing? Is it a constant experience? Is it the tricky use of the word experience that I'm having trouble with? Is that clear, the question?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. You're probably voicing this question for a lot of people. So I did say that, like when he said it's not experience does not mean that something's wrong with your experience. That's very valuable experience, like a seeing in nature, seeing emptiness. Then you're like, oh, I finally understand. That's what the Buddha was talking about. It validates what you have been studying about. No, so it does not diminish your the experience. And what Master Sheng Yen wanted to highlight is wisdom with what we do, how we live our life every moment. That's why he wanted to highlight that it is an attitude of no self. The question is, how do we make use of that experience? It's an important, profound experience, right? And allows you to really gain some clarity, and really also just to dispel the doubt, the remaining doubt you have, because you can read the sutra, read the Dhamma, however many times, however many books you read. It's like they're the habit, the entrenched habit of self-centered attachment. You say, nah, that's not, like there's some part of it that doesn't really apply to me. I'm the exception. We have this secret wish that I am an exception, or some part of me, some part of my world is an exception. So when so experiences like that, oh wow, like yeah, like it's really like it does. And but how do you make use of this experience is to put it into practice of your daily life every moment, to cultivate your attitude of when you interact with the world, interact with dealing with your own difficulties, because as Master Sheng Yen have said over and over and over again, that having the experience of seeing nature allows you to not to have this faith in the Buddha's teaching. Meaning is the other way of talking about dispelling remaining doubt in the Buddha's teaching. And you will have this very strong conviction, unshaken conviction in the Buddha's teaching, and in the need to make use of it, to practice. And so, or you can, the conviction in being that like, I need this medicine. I need to take this medicine. And instead of like, I don't know, today I don't feel like practicing because I don't need it. Like you say, oh yes, I do. Like every time I don't practice, I don't take this medicine, I suffer and I cause problem for other people. There's just no doubt in our mind. That is the case. That's what the importance of such experience, and it is extremely important. It's not it's not a belittling this experience, but having the experience itself does not do all this for you. You still after you come out of your Huatou experience, you still have the next moment to breathe and talk to people and go back and do your laundry and with your boss or something like that. What are you going to do this moment? how you going to bring the Dharma into the moment, into the practice. And it's the habit of self-centered attachment is so entrenched, even though we can see through it, it creeps in over and over again. That's why Master Sheng Yen always said that it does not mean your vexation disappears. That is the most unhelpful misunderstanding of revolving around enlightenment, is that, oh, you have enlightenment, it's like you're all good, like you're like the same as Buddha. Oh no, you're really, really quite far away from the Buddha. Make no mistake. But the difference is, you can recognize this vexation, and you know that is not your true nature. You don't have to follow and believe in these vexations as you. But you still need to do the work of recognizing them and not falling for these habits. That is the work. That is the cultivation of this attitude of no self. I don't know if I answer your question. So, but
I would just one. So, but I feel that if I have the attitude of no self, that's just words, or just sort of some conceptual, oh, there's no self. Don't I need to constantly experience it, as opposed to an experience of it, a constant experience?
It's every moment is a new moment. Yeah. So last moment, I remember that, that not a fixed self does not mean that this moment I will not forget. The practice is remembering and recognizing that we have forgotten. The moment we forget, we create suffering for ourselves, and chances are we cause other people suffering. Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So next is Harry.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, Harry.
Thanks for your teaching. One of the things you said struck me about impermanence, about how we can think that we've lost something, and then we can think that we've gained something. And then when we do that, we think that we have understood impermanence. So the other day, I left my umbrella on the subway. I was practicing great non-mindfulness. So when I realized I was absent an umbrella, I thought, oh, well, some person will be able to take, advantage of my umbrella, and I hope that they use it well. But that's yet again another kind of very subtle attachment in a way, because then I'm a great practitioner for not attaching. So I was just wondering if you could just drill down a little bit more on that kind of subtlety, which is very elusive. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. Yeah, it's about being able to recognize, oh yeah, and catch yourself thinking that's like, I pat yourself in the back. I can see like that's not mine umbrella. Now that it's like someone's umbrella, I'm all good with that. And then it's like, ooh, but that was a really great moment of wisdom here. My wisdom, like now you can deposit into your bank of wisdom of Harry. And so it's like, okay, like, so that too is a subtle thought of attachment, like that it's not, now the attachment is not to the umbrella, right? But to the fact that I'm able to see this. That's what we mean by the habit of self-centered attachment is entrenched and pervasive, and that's why any moment when we say, oh, I got it, like, and I'm good for like ever, that's the moment we think that, oh, I don't need to practice. I can just kind of coast. And because I'm like, sort of, that's the moment when you think that I'm like, you know, this completely, fully liberated, enlightened being. That's why the teachings, if you have encountered these, you know, sastras, it will talk about how there are this different like 52 bhumis and all that stuff, and you can get into the details and kind of get all lost in it. But like the general message is like, it's like a really, there are lots and lots of different ways that we can get tripped up, and what to do. Pay attention every moment. It's so easy to say, oh, I have practiced all those years. I've been to all those retreats and I have all those realizations and all those stuff. Like, I'm like, you know, I got it. I have all this wisdom. That's the moment to be very careful about. Every moment is a new moment. No self. Thank you for your questions, and gave me an opportunity to share a bit more of what I've learned from Master Sheng Yen. And so I see that it's noon on my clock, so I'm going to hand things back to Angela. And thank you again very much for being here. Of course, if nobody turned up, there will be no opportunity for this talk to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.